Welcome, Tansi. We're glad you are here. I am so honored to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Kendall Netmaker. He is the CEO and founder of Nietzsche Gear. He's a young Indigenous man who's blazing his own trail of entrepreneurship. So last week he talked about Indigenous entrepreneurship, which was a remarkable workshop presentation. If you have the opportunity, go to our Can Do website and you can find those videos and those recordings. So this week we're going to talk about Indigenous leadership. So welcome. We are honored that you are here. We're honored that Kendall is here. We're honored that we actually have this day, this moment together, that Zoom connects us. So I'm Michelle Nevadomi. I'm coming from Edmonton and Misquitchie, Waskagon, Beaver Hills House, Treaty 6 territory. I am honored to be able to host this event this afternoon, this webinar. So welcome. Thank you for coming. There is going to be an opportunity at the end to ask questions, to lend your voice, your thoughts to this conversation of Indigenous leadership. So there is space for that. Now in the event, as we go out throughout this presentation, this workshop, you might have some thoughts, some questions. Feel free to use that chat box. I will make sure, I will make note of them, and we will discuss them at the end. There also is an opportunity, an amazing opportunity to win a prize. So check it out. It's a $400 Visa gift card. There's 2 of them that are being given away this week. Now, how do you enter? All you have to do at the end of this workshop, the ladies will be sending you an evaluation link. So you click on that link and fill it out, lend your feedback, your voice, and then your name will be entered to win a draw. So I encourage you to fill out those evaluations. So I'm going to introduce the topic today and what Kendall is going to be presenting on. So it is Indigenous leadership is a way of life. Indigenous leaders are becoming more and more in demand year after year. Throughout history, Indigenous leaders were the backbone of their respected communities because they followed a specific set of principles to live and prosper together. So Kendall today is going to take us into the worldview of Indigenous leaders and how can we all learn to lead and live in harmony. That's the key right there. Live in harmony with one another. So this workshop, you will gain insight into Indigenous leadership views, understand the importance of Indigenous spirituality and beliefs, understand how Indigenous leadership is different from the mainstream, and learn the success principles of Indigenous leadership. So I sat through this morning and I walked away super inspired. My heart was full, so I trust you will walk away the same way. So open your mind, your heart for the next 45 minutes as Kendall brings in his teaching for us this afternoon. So welcome, Kendall.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to Can Do for organizing this today. I'm super honored to be here with all of you today. Kitam skatin awao, Kendal Netmaker Nitsigasan. Nakoachi Ochinia in Sweetgrass, that's where I'm from. Upseasbook on an Ahioan. Maka Ikakwe Akamemwin. Nuts, we're going to be speaking about Indigenous leadership, but before I get into that topic today, I want to challenge everyone who's watching this right now or who watches this recording. Everyone in this moment is here for a purpose. Okay, we all have our own past that we've been given to be here in this moment. One of the things that really drives myself as a Nahio person, as a Cree person, is I look back on every single person that's come before my time. You know, as leaders, especially as First Nations, as Indigenous leaders, we're always thinking about the next generation after us. It's not about us, it's about the people that we're serving, the people after us, our children, our grandchildren, our chapans, and so on. So when you look at it from a perspective of every single person that's allowed you to be in this room here today, that's allowed you to have the opportunities that you have, all the sacrifices from our ancestors, all the people that lost their lives in residential schools and beyond, all the racism we've had to face, all the obstacles our people have had to face to be in this moment right now, to have opportunities. Everything that I do is because of all the sacrifice that's happened before me. Everything that you're going to accomplish with your life as a leader, the ripple effects of the people, your children, your grandchildren, the people that you serve, your employees, your staff members, and so on. So I want you to, everyone who's watching this right now, ask yourself, am I doing all that I can to be the best possible leader for the people that are going to come after me? Am I paving the way so that when someone else comes after me, they can keep moving forward on that journey that you've set out for them, that you set out for your team? When I was being raised in Sweetgrass as a kid, my grandma, we call her Kukam Cree. My Kukam was one of the person that was a key person from myself and my foundation growing up. And one of the things that she would always stress when we were kids, and she would translate this through my mom because she only spoke Cree, and she would always say that every day that we have, it's not for nothing. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a unique set of talents, gifts, abilities. If you honor your gifts, what you're good at, as you go about your path, you'll discover things that you're good at. Sometimes people will say, you know what, you're really good at that. You should do more of that. Or someone will see something in you and give you opportunities. Those things that people may say about you or may encourage you to do with your life, they see something in you. That might be something that you're really good at. That's a gift right there. My Ukam used to say that everyone has gifts. Everyone is here for a purpose. Now, as you're going about your path in your life, wherever it is that you are right now, most of us have a goal of what we want to achieve with our life. That goal that we're trying to achieve, there's like a road that paves from where we are right now to where we want to go. And in order to get to that goal, she would really stress this important piece here is that everyone should try to abstain if they can from drugs and alcohol, negativity, gossip, negative people who just talk about everything negative in the world. Sometimes you have to make less time for certain friends, family members, even. That's the hardest part. You have to protect what's up here, your mindset. If you have a goal in your life and you're trying to lead, you're trying to help people with whatever path that you've been given, it's kind of like if you're walking down a path and it's nighttime. You can't really see where you're going sometimes if you don't have a flashlight or whatever to help guide you to get there. But what about if it's pitch dark and you can't see it? Or even worse, it's so cloudy, it's so foggy, you can't even see the road. You see, a lot of people, they make their lives very difficult. They go about their lives every single day and they wonder why they can't become the leader that they were born to be, because they make their lives difficult for themselves. They abuse drugs and alcohol. They're around negative influences. And my hukam would always stress that. She said, as long as you're leading your path, whatever creator's given to you, your gifts and so on, you're using them, you're honoring your gifts, you're leading a good life, there's a good chance you can get from where you are to where you want to be. That success journey, she would call it. But a lot of people make their lives difficult, hard on themselves. So when they consume that negativity, what they do is they create their own cloud. It clouds their paths and where they're trying to go. So they end up in a circle, just going around and around and around, not really going anywhere. They're stuck. Meanwhile, their other friends who know what they want, they abstain from all that stuff and they're focused. They keep going. Their friends can't turn back and take them most of the time. They have to keep going. That's why you see some people, when they get to a mountaintop, they're really successful. Oftentimes, they've had to let go of a lot of toxic friends, negative people in their life. They've had to make less time for them. It's hard doing that. But what's most important is that you have to make a decision to go after that thing. And when you go after these big goals, these big dreams as a leader, there's things you're going to have to let go of. It's kind of like you can't take a heavy backpack on the road. You have to let go of things so you can get there quicker, so you can last the long journey to get there. One of the things I wanted to start off with that today is that in order to be an effective leader, the things I'm going to share with you today have come from not only my kukum, but also other elders that have taught me things in ceremony, um, mentors, lodge keepers, and so on that have translated into how I run my business, how I treat people, how I work with my staff, how I work with people virtually, and so on. And if you follow these simple, I'm not going to call them principles, I'm going to call them teachings, because that's how we're told. When someone in a ceremony says, hey, you're being taught something, it's a teaching. That's how they translate it. It's a teaching. So I'm going to share with you some teachings that have helped myself and the people that I work with. And if you apply these teachings to your life, I know it's going to help. I know it's going to help take you from where you want to be, from where you are to where you want to be. So as Michelle said, just listening with an open mind today, and I'm going to tell you a story that will help illustrate this. When I was, as far as I can, my earliest memory was living in Whitefish First Nation, Big River First Nation. When I was living in that community, my parents were together. They had myself, my sister Kendra, my sister Farah, and my baby sister Marisha. So I'm the oldest of four of us in total, my siblings. When we were living in our reserve, my mom was always home with us, and my dad, I rarely saw him. He was out being, a young dude just getting into trouble and so on. So my mom was always home. She was like our foundation. She became a instrumental piece to my early upbringing. And one day, my mother decided that she was going to make a radical change for us. Sometimes when you're a leader of your family, a leader of your community, you have to make decisions that are uncomfortable. You have to make decisions that move you outside your comfort zone. In that moment, when I was 5 years old, my mom made one of those big decisions for us. And it wasn't for her, it was for the whole team. I'm part of that team. She said, I'm gonna leave this relationship. So she left the relationship. So one day, I'm about 5 years old, just finishing kindergarten. I got dropped off at the end of my driveway. My driveway is a washboard road, and there's tall trees on the right. There's tall trees on the left in my reserve. And I remember walking down that gravel road to my house, and I could see in a distance my mom was in a panic. She was in a rush state. I could tell she was stressed out. And I remember her grabbing these garbage bags, these boxes. She was putting all of her belongings in there. And I remember her taking it outside, putting it in the back of that pickup truck. And she put all of her belongings as fast as she could. She did about a couple of trips by the time I made my way all the way to the house. By the time I get to the house, I could see my sister Kendra in the back seat, my sister Farah, and my baby sister Marish as an infant getting put in the back seat. So I'm there, and I'm wondering what's happening. I said, "Hey, mom, what's going on?" My mom's in a rush, you could tell, and she's like, "Kendall, go inside, go pack up your bag. We're gonna go somewhere for a while. Hurry up!" So me, I'm 5 years old, and at that time, Ninja Turtles was in. So Ninja Turtles, I had this backpack and had a few Ninja Turtles toys. I put my stuff in that backpack. I put in the back seat. I jump in there and I'm ready to go to wherever we were going next. And I remember we ended up leaving to go to a place called Prince Albert. And we rarely went to the city. We'd only go there for like the medical taxi for appointments, dentists, checkups and stuff like that. So when we got to the city, I was super, it's always exciting as a kid to go to the city, especially when you're not from there or you don't live in the city. So I remember getting there and we checked ourselves into this hotel looking room. We get into this hotel room and all of a sudden there was a bed over here and a bed over here, and it was just a tiny room. There's fluorescent lights on the ceiling. We put all of our belongings there and we stayed there for a couple nights. And I remember staying there for a couple nights. We go to a different room. a different city, a different room, and so on. And I remember having this flashback when I was a teenager. And sometimes you're going to have flashbacks to your childhood of things that maybe shape the person that you are today. Sometimes they're traumatic, sometimes they're good memories. In this instance, I was confused. I didn't know what was happening. I had that memory. And I remember asking my mom when I was a teenager, I said, "Hey, mom, I remember I have this memory of of childhood, about 5 years. I was 5 years old. Kindergarten just finished. I said, I need your help. Tell me if this is true, or did I just dream this out of nowhere?" I said, "I remember leaving dad's house. I remember going to Prince Albert. We were in these hotel rooms." And she was like shocked that I can remember all this. And she's like, "Son, those weren't hotel rooms." I was like, what were they? Those were women's shelters, interval houses for single moms who had no place to go with their children. I was like, "Well, what happened?" She's like, "Well, I made a decision. I had to leave your dad. We were in a very unhealthy relationship. It got to the point where I had to leave. I had to make a decision to put you kids first, because if you would have stayed there, you probably wouldn't have been able to do what you're doing today." Now that's a deep thought for myself. I'm like, holy crap, never thought of it that way. So I was like, "Well, what happened after that?" She says, "We go to your cookum." We were talking on the payphone one day from one of these shelters, and she asked us to go live with her in Sweetgrass. So we did. We moved all the way to Sweetgrass. My cookum lived on top of this hill in a 1-bedroom house, and um, she would now raise me for several months and help with my mom with the children. And I became, I guess, a student of hers in a respectful way. I mean, she would teach me things without having to teach me things. I would just observe, and I'd watch how she would talk with people and so on. So the first day we get to my cookum's house, she told us where we could sleep, and there was a couch in the back, and then my mom slept on that couch. I slept right beside on the floor. Kendra, Farah, my baby sister Mercy's infant, staying with my mom on the couch, and that was home for us. And I remember watching my cookum and how she would work with people. Now, sometimes there'd be people that would come in the house that weren't in a healthy state up here. They come be rude, disrespectful, um, or sometimes even intoxicated. And I remember watching this as a kid and watching how my kukam would just treat these people with kindness. One of the teachings that I was taught, and not just through my kukam, but also in ceremony. When you go to a ceremony, when you're in that way of life, there is no hierarchies. Okay, it's we're all there as equals, I guess you could say. And as human beings, we're all there as equals. And so when we go to these places and we're there to pray, you have to come from a place of being humble. You have to use humility when you go there. You can't bring your ego there. You can't do that kind of stuff, because it's a place of worship and prayer. And so when you're when you're in your mainstream, whatever creed that you're in right now, one of the things that I tell people especially First Nations people, when they come for coaching and I'm working with them, I I try to explain, and this is the best way I can explain this. We are living in two worlds most of the time for most people that I work with. This world over here that I'm talking about, this the First Nation spirituality, we'll call it, this way of living that's been here for thousands of years before any other religions came to this continent. The way that we live as a people is meant to be in harmony with everything. Everything that we do as First Nations people was meant to live in harmony with everything. We weren't meant to take more than we needed with natural resources, medicines, sweetgrass, sage, all that type of stuff. We used everything that was there, and we didn't try to waste anything. Respect for everything. That's how much respect we had for everything out there. And it got to the point where we would only speak if we needed to, not just for nothing. They would only speak if they had to speak, and they would watch how they would talk to other people, because there was a teaching in that. You have to watch how you speak to other people. Watch how you talk to people, she would say. Don't try to get in arguments. And she would really stress that. Remember my mom telling me the story about, because my mom was, she would always tell me this, and she would say, if I had my own way, I would have been a fighter. She used to say, I used to fight, I would fought with everyone. She said, but my mom, she says, my kukam, held me back from doing a lot of that stuff. And I used to wonder why, she said. Now I understand, because the words that I could have said to someone could have triggered them to do something negative or to have a bad day. And those chain reactions can create positivity, abundance, or it can be a chain reaction to something negative happening in that person's life. That's how powerful words are. So the words that you decide to use for the people that you're working with can either uplift them or bring them down. What are you going to decide to do with them? All of us have that gift of choice. The choice that we use, our words can impact people or bring them down. There was a mentor in my life, and he was my high school volleyball coach. And I remember like yesterday, he said to me, I was the only First Nations kid walking in this gym to try out for this team. And he pulled me aside after that tryout and he says, Kendall, come here. I want to talk to you for a second. So he pulled me aside away from everyone. And he says, hey, I really liked how you played today. I see a lot of potential in you, he said. I see a lot of potential in you. I want to work with you. You might not get a lot of playing time this year, but I want you to stay on my team. I see potential in you, he said. Powerful words. I stayed on his team. I committed to that sport. I started to work at that thing because this person believed in me. This leader believed in me. Imagine what would happen if everyone who's watching this right now went to someone with that they saw potential and they said that to them. If you told someone, I see potential and you should do that more, you're really good at that. That could spark an entire different path for that person that they're meant to go on. Watch how you use your words. Use them to uplift people. You know that coach, his name was Doug, and Doug created a chain reaction for me. And the chain reaction was this. I committed to the sport. I gave my all to the sport. That sport, I never got into university, so the sport got me into college. I played college volleyball for 2 years. I come back to Saskatoon. I get into university. That sport again gets me through university. I'm playing it on the sides. It starts my first company, which failed. But all of a sudden, birth to Nietzsche Gear. Right after that, Nietzsche Gear took off eventually. We had stores, we are online, we're still doing stuff online around the world. We do custom orders, wholesale, and so on. It gave birth to becoming a speaker. It gave birth to writing a book. It gave birth to creating online courses and being here in this moment here with you. One person. It's all it takes. It could be you right now in this moment. It could be you. All it takes is to say that one kind gesture to someone else to uplift their day. What are you going to decide to do with your words? So as we think about being respectful, respect and humility are one of the main foundations to our way of living as Indigenous, as Nehiyawak, Indigenous people, is the term respect and humility and how we use that to portray ourselves into to who we're working with. Long ago, these leaders, their positions were earned. They were earned through a lot of positive habits over the years. The lodge keepers that you see in your communities don't just, most of the time, they don't just get them. Sometimes they're inherited in some way, but most of the time they have to work and apprentice for many years until they get stuff. Whether it's songs, whether it's a pipe or a bundle, a lodge of some sort and so on. These people have to work at that. It's not just an overnight thing. Leadership is an earned right. It's a privilege to lead. It's a privilege to want to wake up every day and serve people. It's a privilege and an honor to work with a lot of people. You know why? Because there comes a time where you're going to have to make a decision. And that decision is you have to be driven to serve people. When you come from that place of being driven to serve other people, you now put the needs, wants, and desires that you have on the back burner and you let everyone else come with you. It's a team effort. When you work as a team, When you put people beside you and you're working towards a common goal, it's stronger. You get there faster as a team. Another thing I wanted to share with you today is when I was sitting there as a kid living with my kukum. I remember I told you about sometimes there'd be people that would come inside and they were negative, right? They weren't exactly positive. One of the things that she didn't have to tell me, but I picked up on it throughout all those years, was the ability to forgive on the fly, to forgive nonstop when you meet people. There's going to be people that will come into your life that will test you, that will see if they can push you around. You know, sometimes they're bullies, right? Sometimes they're people who just want to come in and cause havoc. They just want to come and spread gossip and so on. There's always going to be that kind of those people in our lives. The question I have for you is, are you going to respond or react? Most people, unfortunately, react to things like that. Reacting is negative. Responding is positive. When people react, they're saying one thing: I'm not grown up enough up here. I haven't built this up yet so that I can respond. You want to be an effective leader, you have to grow this. You have to protect your mindset. You have to grow your confidence up here in your ability to be able to not let those words affect you and react in a negative way. So if someone comes to you that's being negative and they're being mean to you and they're saying nasty stuff, you don't have to accept those things. When people are being negative to another person, that's a reflection of the person that's talking to that person. Has nothing to do with the person that's being talked to. I used to wonder about that. You know, I was taught a lesson when I had my first Nietzsche gear store. Here's a true story. My very first store in Nietzsche gear, I remember we had just gone from the kiosk to a retail store. And I remember at that time I had 2 staff members, but they couldn't show up that day. So that evening from 6 to 9 p.m., I had to work at the shop. And during that time, I was just trying to figure out business. I was trying to figure out payroll. I was trying to figure out designs, inventory management, all that type of stuff. And so I was a little stressed. I couldn't really think positively. All of a sudden, this person off the street comes into the shop and starts verbally attacking me. And unfortunately, this person was even from, was visibly a First Nations person. They were a male. And this person was just talking down about the brand and being very disrespectful, to the point where I had to kick him out of the store. And I had to, you know, he kept going and he kept talking. That night, I was really hurt, to the point where I shed a few tears. Like, I was hurt because I couldn't believe that someone from my own background can come in and say that to myself. As I look back almost 10 years later, that 8 years later, I realized that these people that hold on to things, they're going to look for people like leaders to kind of try to dump on. You'll see this a lot on Facebook, on all these social media channels where people are sitting behind a screen, you know, they're making mean Facebook comments and so on. You see that all the time. You don't have to react or respond to that. You don't even have to type back to that. That person is going through something that you don't know. You don't have to type anything in those comments. You don't have to engage in that stuff. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to lead through action and let your action do the talking for yourself. There's always going to be people that will come and test you. I look back on those people, that's just one instance of many, many instances that I had to go through I will call that lateral verbal violence. Okay. That was it wasn't a positive thing, but I've also gone through a lot of racism throughout my time. All these things have shaped the person that I want to become. I said, I'm not going to let that affect me no more. Sometimes we have to go through the negative to become a better leader. Sometimes we have to go through those things to teach us lessons that we can grow, so that we can build ourselves up here, so we can get thicker skin, so that when the time comes when we're leading more and more people, we can handle it. We can handle it. When we got our first house on the reserve, after we moved out of my kukum's house, it was about grade 1. In grade 1, we got a little 2-bedroom house about 1 kilometer away from my kukum's house. My mom's cousin was moving out of that house. He offered it to my mom and my siblings to live in because he's moving to the city. There was no new houses being built, so that was like a blessing in disguise right there. Like, it was just a big blessing. And I remember getting into that house and walking in there, and there was a 2-bedroom house. My mom said, "Son, there's your room over there." I was like, "Awesome!" I was super pumped, and I was excited because we finally had our own space. "Where's Kendra and Farrah Mercia gonna sleep?" I said. "The other room over there." I was like, "Awesome." I was like, "Well, where are you gonna sleep?" She's like, "It's okay, son. I'll sleep right here on this couch in the living room." She slept on that couch from grade 1 up until I graduated high school. The reason I share this story, there's 2 reasons I share this story. First off, why didn't my siblings and I share a room? In our, I guess from the Cree perspective, I'll give you this idea here, is that long ago there was teachings about respect between male and females, okay? And it was disrespectful for me to share a room with my siblings who were females, okay? I couldn't when I was being raised, I couldn't say inappropriate things to them. They couldn't say inappropriate things to me. They would get lectured by my mom. They couldn't dress inappropriately or talk inappropriate to me. It was very strict. The reason why this was so heavily ingrained was because the goal is that when we become adults, we'll respect each other. We'll respect the person that we choose to be with for the rest of our life. We'll respect those people, respect our kukums, our mushums, our chapans, our relatives, even strangers. Respect is a deeply, deeply ingrained teaching that unfortunately some of us have lost. We know we've lost some of this through residential schools, through a lot of the different things, the 60s scoop and so on. The modern day things that we're seeing in the foster care system. A lot of our children aren't being raised with these things. So it's our duty as leaders to go and educate our people, educate our staff members. Sometimes people you're working with won't understand that. It's up to you to educate those people in a really positive and respectful way, to share stories of your experiences, share stories about how you've been able to be inspired, or how you've been able to help other people based on your story. People learn in images. They're always thinking. When someone's telling you a story, they're picturing it up here. It's like a movie playing. When I'm telling you the story, you're picturing it in your own way. The second part of that story that I wanted to share with you was the reason my mom slept on that couch for that many years is because every single leader, whether it's a parent, a CEO, a GM, a director, a manager, a coach on a sports team, you are going to have to make sacrifices so that the whole team has a chance of winning. I am a product of that team. My mother was our leader, and thankfully still around to this day for us to lead. I'm very grateful for that sacrifice, because without that sacrifice, I wouldn't have been taught things where I'm sharing this with you today. These leaders in my life have inspired me to share with you these things, to give you these teachings, to pass them on through virtually, I guess you could say. It's because of sacrifice. Every leader has to get used to sacrificing. Our ceremonies, there's sacrificing happening in them, from abstaining from anything negative. You have to do that before you go into a ceremony. Drugs and alcohol, all those type of things that can make you not ready to be in that place, I'll say, in a respectful way. There's fasting that goes on. You can't drink. You can't drink any water. You can't even eat for so many days. I didn't realize how difficult that was when I started my first Sundance, when I went to go and dance in that when I was about 20. I didn't realize how difficult that was. And when I went through that, and I'm 33 now, and going back to that each summer and going through that, it really makes you appreciate a lot about life, about how you can live every single day to try help one another. You realize, like, even life's too short. We all have the ability to help one another through our words, how we help one another, how the opportunities we give to people. And sometimes all it takes is to say, I see potential in you. You're really good at that. You should do that more. Sometimes that's all it takes. One of the things that is going to take us from right in this present moment to becoming world-class leaders, provincially, nationally, internationally, is going to be this one key sentence that I'm going to say. It's going to come from our ability to adapt. And what I mean by that is there's going to come a time in your life where you're going to have to adapt to situations. I didn't realize how I had to adapt until I was in grade 3. When I was in grade 3, I remember getting bused to this place called Cut Knife, a farming community. Some of the kids from Palmaker, Little Pine, and Sweetgrass First Nation would get bused to that school. And when they would get bused to the school, I remember I was in grade 3 at that time, and I realized that I was different. I realized I had an accent. I talked about different things. I talked about my mushum, my cookum, the things that were happening on a reserve. They didn't talk like that. They talked about farming, crops, the rain, how much the weather patterns. So we were totally different. I had no choice but to adapt and listen and study how they talked. I had no choice but to sit there at recess and listen to these conversations. I was able to adapt by playing sports. We found a common ground. I like sport, they like sport. They talk differently, I talk differently. So I adapted to their language, and I started to ask them questions about the things that they were working on. I asked them crazy questions at 10 years old. Hey, how are your crops doing? Crickets. Hey, how much rain you get last night? These kids are like looking at me. Who's this kid, right? You know what? I got friends on the recess soccer field. The recess soccer field introduced me to my best friend at 10 years old who was from South Africa. His family came here as immigrants. His family would eventually be the family that paid for my soccer fee to play after school. His family would eventually be the family that would drive me to games and practices. His family, his dad would become one of my first mentors ever. He was the guy that inspired me to add this into my title. You could see the first word, it says driven. The reason I put driven in this book is because that man, Johan Sr., was my first role model. Every single day I'd see this guy. On the weekends, I'd be playing with his son. And I'd watch Johan Sr. get up and he would look after himself. He'd do a lap around the lake like a marathon. He'd get up, he'd be studying because he was a doctor. He'd get up and he'd be looking after his kids. He'd be reading. He'd be so driven. I remember as a kid, whatever I decided to do, I was telling myself this up here, whatever I decided to do, I'm gonna do something like that one day. I made a decision. That's a decision all of us have to make as leaders. If we want to really become the leader we were born to be, we have to make decisions to commit to that. It's just the same thing in business. What makes a successful business? The business owner commits 100% of their effort into that idea. What makes a successful business leader? Any kind of leader that even gets into politics, they commit 100% of their effort into that. You put one foot in and another foot, another project, doesn't work that way. You're going to get 50% here, 50% here. And you're going to wonder why things didn't work out for you. Then you'll start making excuses. Why not go all into something? Why not go all into an organization as a leader, as a business, or whatever it is that you're leading right at this moment for a community? Only when you go all in can you reap the full benefits. And you know what? Sometimes you're going to go through things that will test you. People will challenge you. People will try to be mean to you. Every single thing that we go through as leaders, as Nehiyawak, Indigenous people, there's going to come times in your life where you hit a wall. And that wall will make you feel like you can't go any further. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you angry. It's going to make you upset. When you hit that wall, that is Creator's way. This is how I've been told. That's like Creator saying, I need you to do this now to get to what the next path that's ready for you. That's been waiting for you. You have to go through this right now. Sometimes it's an obstacle that we can't imagine we're going through. So if you're going through something, and you're all going to go through this in some way, whatever obstacle, problem that you go through, understand that It's Creator's way of showing you, building you for what's to come, setting you up, preparing you for what's to come, so that when that time comes, you'll be ready. You'll be ready to lead, to work at this at a bigger level than you're currently at. Growth is uncomfortable. Building a business is uncomfortable. Building an organization is uncomfortable. Having uncomfortable conversation is uncomfortable. You know, me, I can't stand having those, but you know what? I have to do it as a leader. I have no choice. When there is a conflict, I try to go take it head on right away, get it out of the way. It's the same thing as you as a leader, whatever it is that you're working towards. When there's a problem, a conflict, go tackle it right away, because it doesn't get better. It gets worse. And it starts to just, grow on you after a while. So as we get closer to this Q&A session, I just want to share with you that, my kukum, she made a decision to, when she became a young old lady and a kukum, she had that ability to forgive on the fly. She was inviting. She didn't treat people disrespectfully, even if they were going through a hard time. And that comes from a place where you can't judge other people. You have to be able to forgive people, be humble, be respectful, regardless of your differences with other people. You have to treat people good. Even in ceremony, we don't turn people away based on any race, what they're going through. We don't do that. It's disrespectful to us. So as you're going about your life as a leader, whatever it is that you're going through, the things that you're going to go through are going to test you. They're going to position you. They're going to force you to grow. They're going to force you to grow up here, so that when the time comes, you'll be ready for that next step. You'll be ready for that opportunity. You'll be ready to lead more than the people that you're working with right now. You'll be ready to sell more products and so on. But it won't happen unless you grow. And growth sometimes is uncomfortable. That's just the way it is. We can't decide how that is for us. What we can do is we can respond in a positive way that forces us to go from where we are to where we want to be, by abstaining from the negative things out there, the drugs, the alcohol, those things, the negative people. It will open up that path for us to walk on that road from where we are to where we want to be. Anytime you introduce negative things into your life, you created your own cloud that stops you from getting there. That's the best way I can explain that. You wonder why things aren't working out for you? Reevaluate the things that you're allowing to be in your life. Reevaluate the people that you're talking to. Reevaluate your daily habits every single day. Because sometimes a simple tweak can get you 10 steps further. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for having me today. I'm going to turn it over to our amazing MC, who has been doing awesome stuff and also has a session next week on mental health, I believe. So I'll hand it over to Michelle.
Hi, Kendall. I just have to say that you carry the teachings of your grandmother and your mother well. So thank you for sharing. I know I feel empowered. I feel inspired. I feel humbled. So thank you so much for sharing, sharing your experience, sharing from the heart.
Thank you.
This is a great opportunity for anyone who has any questions or even a comment, in addition to the conversation. Feel free to unmute yourself, or if that's something you're not comfortable with, use that chat box. So we really want to open it up for any questions, any comments. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself or come on live in the video, and I'd be happy to give any feedback.
Hey, Kendall, give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me. Awesome. I just want to say thank you in my traditional language of Dene First Nation, Masi, for the way that you incorporated your Mushum and Kukum's teachings into your talk about leadership. My question is about self-care.
Yeah.
I'm currently a master's student. I work for the Coquitlam First Nation. I'm a manager, and there's a couple of them actually on the call right now. And I'm finding it's super difficult for me, doing full-time studies, doing full-time master's work. For me to, sorry, I'm just getting out of the gym. They're telling me to go outside to talk.
He's grinding. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So like, and that's one of the things that's like for me, like I was talking to my supervisor and I was like, how do I get self-care and stuff like that in? And they were like, basically she mentioned like you fit it into your day, you know, like kind of like what I'm doing is I'm getting some professional development through this webinar, and I'm able to be at the gym and listen to this and kind of think about it. But like I guess I'm looking for advice from one Indigenous leader to another is how do you prioritize the self-care? What does that look like for you? How do you fit that into your busy schedule? Because, you know, if we work ourselves to the bone, we're not good to anybody, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've been
I hope that
where the point where, so when I was full-time Ichigear and I had all these different stores, I was like, had my minivan, which my wife hated, but I loved that minivan. Anywho, and I'd be in that minivan going to different stores, and I was eating McDonald's every day, drinking coffee 2-3 times a day, filling in from every shop because I didn't have the right management at times. So I'd be like filling at this shop, go to a different city, filling that shop. So I was just a mess, and I wasn't looking after myself. It got to the point, Zach, where you have to associate the goal that you have, where you want to get to, with the type of habits that you have to develop to get there. The type of habits that I had at that time were not congruent to being right here with you. Okay, I would have been probably extremely overweight by now, right? So and probably not in a good position. I probably wouldn't, I have more time to be with my family now. So at that time, I was a slave to my business. I was a slave to that. That's the best way I can put it. And so I wanted to create a lifestyle friendly business for myself, because that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to have time to take my kids to my son to hockey, my girl to gymnastics or whatever she plays, and be able to be a dad and also be a husband to my wife. So what I recommend, Zach, is that you write down what it is that you want to do. And when you write down what it is that you want to do, what you want to grow into, what are the habits that you need to do to get there? What are the daily habits that, if you knew, what would they look like? So ask yourself, a lot of times people will say, no, I have no idea. But what if you did know? What would it look like? Write them down. Write the habits down. If you're confused, find someone else in that position that you want to get to and model them, model their behaviors. They're doing something right. So model those behaviors. It gets to a point where if you're not happy with a current outcome, it means that you're comfortable with the pain of that feeling. So you have to attach that feeling of what it is that you want to a new habit. Okay? So for example, let's pretend that I don't know. Let's pretend I was terrified of public speaking, okay? But I wanted to train. Like deep down I wanted to train, but I was just terrified of the mic, which I was terrified. I was the shyest kid growing up. So let's pretend that that's one of my things, but I wrote down I really want to become a trainer. So the habits that I would need to develop is work on my voice. I'd have to work on public speaking. So I would have to probably get some training, probably work with a coach. And you know what? Those are the things that I did. I started hiring coaches. I started going to workshops like this. I started personal development. So the time when I got onto a mic, I was ready. I could handle that first mess up. I can handle that first stumble. I used to stutter a lot. I used to not know how to tell stories a lot. But you know what? You work on this, you put the right things in here, it manifests into everything out here. That's the best way I can put that, Zach. So I hope that helps.
That was brilliant. That was good. Thank you. Anyone else have a question or comments? This is good stuff.
Awesome. I have a private question here, so I'm just going to answer the question, Michelle. It says, my question is, what tools do you use to stop negative stuff in your head when people are saying you can't do something or doubting your skills? My answer to that is, when people verbally say that you can't do something or doubt you, do everything you can to get away from those kind of people. Okay? If you can't get away from them, if they're a family member, It's tough, I get it, but sometimes you just have to do what you can to avoid those people. Like I can tell you from experience, it's very difficult when it's a close family member. Super difficult because you love those people, you care for them, you want the best for them, but sometimes they don't want the best for you. You know why? Because they see potential in you. That's how people do that. When people say that you can't do that, or they see that you're good at something, but they'll maybe talk you down because they don't feel good about themselves. It's not you, it's them. When you understand that it's not you, it's the other person talking and how they feel about themselves, things start to make more sense for yourself. And you start to realize, like, you know what, I do have potential. It just comes out wrong it comes out wrong to people that are scared to do what you're doing. So if you have these big goals and you're trying to achieve something, there will always be people like that will say, yeah, you can't do that. You're crazy. You know what? When I started Nietzsche Gear, I told people, I said, I'm going to create the next First Nations Lululemon. And you know what? People laughed, people chuckled, until I started opening up stores, just like Lululemon, having my own brand, selling my own brand in my own stores, just like Lululemon. Those people that used to bully me, I talk about this on one of my videos in the past. There was a guy who came in who used to bully me as a teenager in high school. And I remember he just used to give me a hard time. You all know people like that. He used to give you a hard time. Back then, my mom used to discourage me from reacting. So I was like my mom. I wanted to fight and to get into arguments, but I just would hold myself back. And so one day this guy walks into my store and he drops like $300 on items. The person that used to bully me came and bought from me. Now, if I would have engaged in how those people think, react to him, fought with him, he wouldn't have come in that day. I can tell you that. He'd still be holding on to that, wishing bad for me. It's how you respond. You can either use that negativity as fuel or a weight to hold you back down. I highly encourage anyone who's gone through a lot of stuff in your life. When you go through those things and you look back on your past, some of you have really, really resilient stories. I know that because I talk with a lot of people, and I know that many people have a lot of those stories, but they never share them. I highly encourage that you talk about it, but most importantly, you use all those things that you've gone through as fuel to achieve your goal. Use it as fuel. Every time I would hear those negative things, those racism and so on, I use it as fuel to keep going. It's like, oh, I'm going to prove I'm wrong. I'm going to keep going. You know what? That's led me here today. I channeled it into a positive goal. You get what I'm saying? It's a positive outlet. So that's the best way I can explain it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, really good. There was a couple of key pieces that I'm taking away from this workshop this afternoon, is that speak life into our young people, or those people that you see around. Let them know that you see the potential in them. But even your story of your high school or your coach who saw that in you, and how that just trickled down to where you are today. So be that voice to our young people. Don't be shy. Your voice needs to be heard. And the other piece is your grandmother's teaching is about forgiveness. You know, I'm a human being, so I have my grudges that sometimes I hold on to, but learn to forgive every day. Because if you don't, that's just gonna get in your way. And then the other piece is those habits. Create those daily habits that will create the life that you are wanting, this good life, this good path. So those are my 3 takeaways from today that I'm gonna go sit with and reflect. Any last chance, any thoughts, comments in the chat box? We have, after this COVID is gone, will you be expanding, Kendall? Need Nietzsche gear here in Grand Prairie. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm solely online. Like, I don't miss the retail. I'm telling you that from, like, I've had stores, I've had hundreds of staff, over 100 staff in my time. I don't miss that. Honestly, I'm happy doing this stuff. This is fulfilling to me. And if I can help you get to where you want in some way, that makes me happy. You know, so I work with a lot of business leaders, of business owners. That I'm creating a program through the academy there. If you go to the website, you'll see there's a group coaching program that I'm launching in the second week of January. And during that program, when I'm meeting with these people like this, and I'm going to work with them to try help them get to expand their career paths and their businesses. So I've been doing that a lot one-on-one through COVID, and now I'm going to work as a group. So creating like a mastermind in a sense, mastermind coaching program that's extremely affordable. So that's the goal. Um, yeah, so that's I just want to share with you a quick story, Michelle, because I like what you talked about, the forgiveness part. In our I'll go back to the spiritual way of living, we'll say. Uh, we, where I come from, we hold dreams with great significance. Some of the dreams can really teach us some things about the present or the future. Okay. And I remember one of the dreams I had when I was in university, and my grandma just passed away in 2008. And about a month later, I had this dream of her. And I remember getting into her house, and I remember seeing her, and I was walking through this dream, and I remember hugging her, giving her a warm hug, and she greeted me just like it was I was walking in that day. And all of a sudden, there's a person that I just despised. Like I didn't want. Like, why are you in my dream? I'm thinking. So I got angry in the dream, and I remember after that, I woke up and I was crying. I was emotional because I remember seeing my kukum. I cared for her. I was driving to school that day, university, to my class. I pull up to this license plate, and you know what the license plate said? It had the number 4, and then in words, give. It was like a big moment for me. Forgiveness. Have to forgive those people that have wronged you. And at that moment, I had to make that decision to do that. That was a powerful moment for myself. And some of you are going to go through that in different ways with your life. So if you want to go further, you have to let go of things. It's kind of like you can't run a marathon with extra weight. You have to shed some pounds, right? It's the same thing with any leadership position, any business you create. You want to go far, you have to be willing to condition yourself to get there. You have to let go of things. So let go of some friends that are holding you back. Sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's family members. You have to make less time for them. That's the sacrifice we have to do if we want to get there, because sometimes that goal is bigger than those things that we're letting go of. It's bigger, it has a bigger purpose. Maybe you're meant to lead a lot of people. Maybe you're meant to work with a lot of people. We don't know that. Only you're going to have that feeling. It's a feeling between yourself and the universe. It's a gravitational pull towards something. It becomes an obsessive feeling towards achieving that. That's the best way I can explain that. So as you go about your life, honor that path, honor your path, your gifts, the talents that you have. Combine your gifts, your talents with the common goal that will get you there. Don't try to live in someone else's shoes or someone else's dream. It doesn't work that way. That's their path. I see too many people doing that, and it takes them a little far, but then they're stopped. They're stumped. They have no motivation because that's not their path. Your path will be such a gravitational pull that you wake up and you're thinking about it at night, in the morning. You're always thinking about it. That's how you know. And so when you combine your gifts with that, you work towards it, magic happens. That's when the unknown steps in to help you. So really hope that all helps.
Woo, you left us with some more good words, Kendall. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all who have joined us this afternoon. I hope you walk away inspired and really motivated internally so that you can make those steps. You can make those daily habits that work for you. We're meant to walk in a good way. We're meant to walk in harmony with our own spirits, with the world that's around us. So as we go on with the rest of our day, I say to you, may you walk in peace, may you walk in balance, and may you walk with ease with who Creator made you be. So thank you so much for coming. Don't forget to fill out those evaluations, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Next week, we're back on. Peace, everyone.
See you, everybody. Moistas.